Okay, this is the Wednesday, August 12th Audit Committee meeting. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:10 p.m. Do we want to do a little roll call to see who's here on the call?
I'm here. Russell Edwards, Allison Wright's here.
Yep, committee. That's the 3 committee members.
Stephanie Maddox is here. Listening, we have Manager Williams, Assistant Manager Edwards, Assistant Manager Lonan, and Sarah Dryden. You're the intern, right? Okay, and okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda. Does anybody want to make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from June? We didn't adopt them last week because there were some technical difficulties with that meeting, and staff wanted to get their notes together. Anybody want to?
So moved for June and July 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Stephanie, you want to give us an update on the work plan activity?
Sure. Second. Write down a motion in a second. Alice for vote. Okay. Okay, so the work plan activity. So the fleet management audit. Fleet management audit is complete. I reached out to the department director and the fleet program superintendent to schedule the exit conference to review the finding and recommendations, and we are working on scheduling that meeting in the next week or so. And after that meeting, it usually takes about 5 days to shore up the report, and then that report is sent to the department, is sent to the manager's office, as well as to the audit committee. The animal services audit is complete, and that report, the exit conference was held with Crystal Barber last week, I believe, and we reviewed the finding and recommendations, and we indicated to her that she should receive the report in about five or 6 days. So we hope to have it to her no later than the end of this week. And that is pretty much it with the animal services audit. The risk assessment tool has been complete. We've received, we're at our 3rd phase. We've collected, I'm sorry, Commissioner Wright has a question. Commissioner Wright
I did. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. You said the fleet management will come to us at the same time it goes to the manager?
Yes, ma'am.
And will you also be doing that for the animal services that's coming out this week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's part of that new process that we voted on, so that we can see a draft of the report sooner rather than later.
Got it. Perfect.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. So, Commissioner Wright, if you remember, you asked me to add the risk assessment process onto the audit status report, which I did, and I also included the steps that we undertook to complete this process. And we started with the audit universe, and there were 117 auditable areas in our organization. And then we reviewed the FY20. We used the FY20 Mayor Commission strategic goals, and then we developed a risk assessment questionnaire and submitted that to all departments and divisions, constitutional officers, and department heads. We received the results, analyzed the results, and the next phase, what we did was we reached out to communities, we reached out to other county governments, audit departments with county governments. We first started with 10 counties in the state of Georgia, as well as Greenville, South Carolina, and Asheville, North Carolina. And before I get too far, I just want to thank Sarah. She is really busy with sorority work this week, but she came in for 3 or 4 days to help me check my numbers and work on the presentation and the PowerPoint. And she was tremendous in helping me put together this presentation for you this evening. So she did a great job in supporting me, but despite how busy she is. So thank you so much. After we finalized the data, one of the things when we reached out to those communities, and just to kind of give you an idea of who we contacted Gwinnett, Georgia Southern, City of Atlanta. There are 2 different audit departments in the City of Atlanta: DeKalb, Macon-Bibb, Madison, Savannah, Chatham, Cobb County, Fulton, Clayton, City of Atlanta, Clayton County Schools, a county called Buncombe, Savannah, Tallahassee, Columbus, Chattanooga, Asheville, North Carolina, and Greenville, South Carolina. And after, we only heard from 3 different audit departments. And what we learned was that there are not many governments that are working in the office because of COVID. They have a staggered staff or no staff, and many departments have decided to either reduce staff to just 1 staff member or suspend their audit plan altogether. And most of the audit departments that we reached out to actually decided to skip their risk assessment for this year. And if they have a multi-year audit plan, that has affected their process. Then we received results from 3 counties, and as we get into the presentation, I'll share that with you. I'm going to share the presentation with the next slide, okay? I hope this is it. Nope. Excuse me. Here it is. So just to kind of quickly go through the overview, as I mentioned, there were 117 auditable areas. And there are 2 departments that we actually recognized that they were extremely overwhelmed and their office did not close because of COVID. And that was the magistrate court and attorney's office. And we gave them an extension until they had relief and could come up for air. And so we did not request an assessment for those 2 departments. There's 1 department out of 117 where we did not receive a risk assessment questionnaire, and that is from the Safety and Risk Division of the Human Resources Department, as well as the Human Resources Director. We did receive a risk assessment for the other divisions in the Human Resources Department, but for the Human Resources Director in the Safety and Risk Division, we did not receive a risk assessment. So 2 out of 116, 2 out of 100 and 13. My math right? Where we did not receive assessment. So we had a great response rate with this risk assessment.
Well, if If I might, Madam Chair, I want to speak on behalf of that, just so that they're not seen as non-responsive. And there was a little bit of confusion when, the department responds, plus each and all the divisions, the sum of the whole. And I know that, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jeff Hale had told us that that he had basically helped to run the safety and risk division when we had a vacancy there, understood it. And I think he included in his response from the overall department. So the content's there if it didn't fit, But Josh, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, Stephanie, he responded to your email. I'm looking at it. It looks like July 16th, and he agreed that risk hasn't been able to fill it out yet due to some vacancies and leave we're experiencing in this area. But he did say, because of his past experience, obviously, and having done this work before being HR director, he definitely included information related to safety and risk in his response. So let us know if he actually didn't respond. He's under the assumption he put in a response and you all have received it. So
we have
miscommunication.
I think that, we did receive an email where he said that he responded, but I think he thought he attached it, but it wasn't attached to the email. And so I need to follow up with him, and I just recently discovered that because I have a notebook that I've been printing them out, and so I just need to follow up with him, but it wasn't included in the notebook.
All right, no problem. I'll send him an email right now telling him he didn't get his attachment, and we'll work it out.
Yeah, because I got the email that says it's attached, but it wasn't attached.
Sounds good. Thanks, Stephanie.
Absolutely. Okay, so here are the three. So here are our three benchmark communities. It was City of Asheville, Chatham County, and DeKalb County. And categories of risks that we used were financial risk, staffing risk, operational risk, and community and reputational risk. And so with those four areas, we try to fit the 6 strategic goals within each of the 4 categories. So for financial risks, this is our interpretation of financial risk, shared prosperity. And so with each of the 4 categories, I am going to identify 1, the strategic goal, and then 2, I'm going to identify the highest levels of risk across the four county governments, audit departments. So for the financial risk, the 3 highest areas of risk across 4 different audit departments was credit cards. That's the travel and purchasing card program, the purchasing and procurement area, as well as consulting fees. There was a smaller area for contract labor, but the consulting fees was much higher, so I just kept that on there. And I want to just share with you that I hope that the information that I'm providing here will generate conversation as we get to the very last slide for you to have when you talk about risk topics. Now, the staffing risk, Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, is it okay to ask questions while the slide's up, or are you wanting us to ask questions at the end?
No, absolutely.
Can you,
Commissioner Link?
Yeah. Well, you had talked about the 4 departments, but we have 36 departments, so I'm a little confused at the department. We have 36 departments, and you had 114 auditable areas.
Mm-hmm.
So where are these 4? You said something about 4 departments.
The 4 categories.
Okay.
The financial, operational, reputational, and community. And then see.
So the 4 categories came from the 51 questions that you had in the questionnaire?
No, those are the standard categories for measuring risk in local government. There's one caveat. Instead of staffing, some governments substitute a regulatory and compliance instead of staffing. But for the most part, it's the same 4, or it's a substitute of regulatory and compliance. But it's the standard 4.
Okay, and so then those are 4 sections within the 51 questions that you sent out to everybody.
The 4 categories, plus some additional information that we have within our department, as well as evaluating some information on the financial system in-house in our own department. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then so I'm just following. So now you're on the first topic, financial risk.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me what the bar graph. What is making the bar graph? Like, what's the X and the Y of this bar graph?
So what we saw in our scoring matrix was that the credit card programs, the travel and purchasing card programs, rated very high across the board for all four audit departments. It had a high risk for all 4, and it's actually one of the auditable areas out of the 117. So it had a high score for Athens-Clarke County as well as the other 3 county audit departments. It was the highest for, I think, 2 out of the other 3, and it was the highest for our organization as well in the financial category.
So let's go back. I'm just trying to get the numbers. If you have 114 auditable areas, is the top of this blue bar like 100, or is it 100%? I'm trying to understand the chart.
Mm-hmm. So in the financial category, there are questions related to finance, related to separation of duties, related to depositing, related to financial transactions, related to purchasing credit cards, stuff like that. And there are a number of different questions that relate to finances. And so, and the departments answered the questions for those areas. And then we as a department, there are other areas that we can look at and also evaluate financial risks. Like we can use the internal financial system, the Eden financial system in-house, and look at certain general ledger account codes to determine areas of risk with certain line items, spending.
I think
Okay.
Allison is raising, I think. Did you have done this same page another way? Because the graphs do not indicate any numbers whatsoever. So could this have been, did you even need to do a graph? Couldn't you have just said those 4 areas were the highest risk? Are the was the graph necessary? I guess what I'm saying.
Well, not. Yes and no. So when we did our scoring,
usually when you do a graph, there's some numbers that correlate.
That is true. And so the numbers that we correlated to the graph were 1 to 5.
Okay.
Based on the scoring that the department scored, they scored themselves.
Okay.
And so we added all the scores up, and then we tallied that number, and that's how the bar graph came to be.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's the part that I listen.
Mhm.
Allison, I thought that's what you were trying to say.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like, see the top line, that green line at the top. Like, if that was 114, it seems like the bar would be telling us, 100 of the areas had a 4 or a 5, had a 5 in the travel P card. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then under purchasing, maybe only, a lesser number. But I guess
correct.
maybe
That's actually correct.
So I guess I'm looking for more, not a surprise. I'm looking for more details, but if this is just an overview and I'm not supposed to absorb it just seems out of 51 questions that were asked, it seems like we would be seeing the high numbers of each of those from all of them.
So for the financial questions, there were only 6 on the questionnaire.
Okay, so this is helpful. Okay, so yes, 6 questions.
Yes, ma'am. And there are 6 on the questionnaire. And so if you think about it, they scored 1 to 5. And so the credit card question was 5 across the board. And if you can think about like the purchasing procurement question scored around 3.5, and the consultant was like 3. Well, everything else was below 2. It was 2 or below.
Okay, this is helpful. Okay, that helps.
All right. And that was similar to the other governments. Any questions on this slide?
Stephanie, going back to that, it might be helpful that there is a parentheses just to explain that part. So
the scoring?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just a bold piece.
Okay.
Understand where the graphs came from.
I will. Okay. All right.
And then this information will be helpful if you have it for the next 3 slides. So, like on staffing risk, I'll be interested to know how many questions of the 51 were related to that, if it's available. And if this is better as a follow-up, just let me know, because I don't want to drag out the meeting for the details that help me understand.
Sure. Okay. So here's a staffing risk. So for the strategic objectives that we house under the staffing risk are accountable and responsive government. And so there were quite a number of departments within our own organization that listed a number of vacancies at the time they completed the questionnaire. There were many departments that indicated concerns or dissatisfaction with promotions and raises, and there was some dissatisfaction with benefits, or it was, the question was just HR/benefits, and they're pretty even. They were 4 or 3, and for that category, Commissioner Wright, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 questions for that category, and they scored 4, 4, 3.
Okay,
and
thank you.
The other 2 were below 3. So these were the highest areas of risk in that staffing category.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. The next one is operational risk. So under the operational risk, the 2 strategic objectives that we put here were healthy, livable, sustainable Athens-Clarke County and transportation, mobility, and connectivity. And so what we have is many supervisors and department heads indicated that there were a lack of written policies and procedures, and that coincides with the survey that we sent out. I think it was in February, where we sent out a one-question survey to the entire government, to every single department, and asked if they had formal written policies and procedures, and we heard back from 50% of the departments that indicated that they did have formal policies and procedures that were accessible to employees. So this is this score, approximately 2.5 is indicative of what the survey showed. The next area is grant compliance and contract management. And what we found is there is an inconsistency across departments when it comes to managing grants. The knowledge level of grants is managing grants on a month-to-month basis is varied across departments. There are some departments that are really comfortable with processing grants and communicating with the finance department monthly, and there are some departments that aren't. We don't have, to my knowledge, a formal training program for employees to help them out. And so grant compliance and contract management scored high for all 4 governments. None of the governments have a compliance manager. And I recall in a conversation with the finance director a few years ago, he indicated to me that at that time that there was the grants were growing and increasing. And at that time, there was over $10 million in grants, and it was growing year over year. And he was concerned because they didn't have a compliance employee, a compliance piece, and that was concerning for him. And so that is why it scores high. It's a liability. It could be one day a liability. So that was the highest area across all 4 governments.
What was the number on that one?
5.
And then how many questions out of the 51 were related to operational risk?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9.
And so these are the 3 questions that got a score of 2.5 or more out of the 114 units, and then areas, and then the rest of them were 2 or lower of the other 6 questions.
There were 9 questions that were housed under the operational area.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And so these 3 that made the bar are a 2.5, a 5, and it looks like maybe a 4.5. And I'm saying that the other 6 questions
were 2 below, 2 or below.
Or 2 or below, because these are just, each bar represents 1 question, right?
Yes. One auditable, like one audit area, like on the universe map, like that universe list that we sent out. The audit universe sheet that we sent out. That's divided by department, by division, by process or program.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm calling the 114 audible areas that you got responses from.
Yes, ma'am.
These are the average numbers from all 14 that give you these bars.
Yes.
I thought that's what you said.
That's correct. And then the other area was audit history. There were, as you know, there are more departments than not who have not undergone an internal audit. And so that's why that scored high. Okay. So community and reputational risk. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4 questions under community and reputational risk. And the strategic objectives that were in this category were safe and prepared community and informed and engaged citizens. And one of the areas that came up high was the ACC website. And I don't think it was a reflection on the public information department per se. I think it is the inability to find information on the web page. And I've experienced that myself. It is challenging to go directly to a department and locate something very easily. And I think you mentioned this earlier, Commissioner Wright, like sometimes going to a department, things are embedded on different pages and it's not as clear. And sometimes it's removed from the web page. I've had a lot of conversations with Overview Commission members, and they've expressed that this was one of their areas of concern as well.
And Stephanie, and that was part of the 51 questions to all of our units was how well the website presented for their department and area?
Mm-hmm. It was actually, if you were looking for information within our government, period, like far as policies, procedures, documents, the takeaway was you have to pick up the phone to call somebody. It's just not where it should be. We have an intranet portal or a document center where seemingly you would think that you click on the intranet and the information would be under that department's page. And it's not. And usually departments will say, oh, I'll just send it to you. And you just want, go ahead. You're going to ask a question? Okay, the next area is transparency. There's a perceived lack of transparency. This is due to last-minute submissions of items added to the agenda. Funding decisions are not clear to the community. I think our employees are questioned. I know that I receive questions from the community about some of the decisions or how did an item get added to the agenda or when an item got added to an agenda, for which I have no answer, but there is a perceived lack of transparency. And I don't have much data, I don't have more data than that. I believe there are only 4 questions here. And then the complaint management system or process is something that I ask all departments on every single audit. It is a process by which you make an effort to improve customer service in a consistent, strategic systematic way that is clear to employees, that gives employees a clear guide of what to expect from supervisors when communicating with the public. So I will move to the next slide to kind of give you an idea. So the formal complaint management process. So here's just a graphic. So someone calls in. They're calling in with an inquiry, a question, a concern, or a complaint. And a department director or a supervisor picks up the phone and they answers the question or resolves the issue. And after the phone call, there is a presumption that the resident is satisfied. Well, the formal complaint management system is a process where the beginning is the same. The customer calls in with a question, inquiry, or complaint. The manager listens, takes down information, addresses and resolves the issue with the customer. But the difference is, in order to communicate clarity and training to employees about what the supervisor or department director expects, at the next staff meeting, that example is used as a teaching model. And so the takeaway is the department director or supervisor is making sure that the staff is clear on the level of service that the supervisor expects. And there are many examples throughout our organization and throughout our community where there are departments or organizations that do a great job, but there is the loop of communication is not closed sometimes, and sometimes people are not quite satisfied, and it only takes a minute to follow up with the department. That very last slide at the bottom, is indicating that make an effort to reach out to the customer a week later or a month later, just to say, is everything okay? Have you had any more issues? Can I help you with anything else? Just making that effort instills, a memory in that customer and says something that you are there to help that customer, and that they will remember that. And also, your customers, your staff will model that same behavior. So in every audit, I always ask, directors if they have a formal complaint management system. I think it's worth communicating, because you can never provide, there are so many opportunities to provide great customer service, and we don't know if we're providing great customer service if we're not providing it consistently. And my most recent example is the Water Business Office, and I will share with you because they were very honest with me when, they, at one point before the audit started, they received a large amount of complaints, and they stated during interviews that the complaints were due to each individual staff member handling customer calls differently. And I talked to the supervisor about implementing this process during her monthly staff meetings. And so they all started to use the same language when addressing customers. They all started to use the same process in addressing challenges. And I don't know if they went so far as to follow up, but their communication style was the same, and it did not confuse customers or make them angry. It reduced that. And so that is what a formal complaint management system is. So in summary, these are the areas, the 4 categories again, of the risk assessment. The financial risk is the credit card program, the purchasing and procurement area, consulting fees and understaffing, the vacancy rate, promotion and raises, employee benefits. Under operational risk is written policies and procedures, grant management and compliance, audit history, and community and reputation risk. Residents find it difficult to locate specific information on the ACC website, perceived lack of transparency, and department lack a formal complaints management process. So here we are. These are the audits that have, some of these audits have been on, some of these topics, have been on the list for several months, and there are a few new audits. So I turn it over to Commissioner Link to start the discussion about topics for the next audit. And I will reduce the size so you can see this.
What we need to do is determine which departments or divisions we would like to see on the work plan. As we can see, the Office of Operational Analysis is wrapped up its work plan. We just have a couple weeks. So I'm waiting on departments to get back. Our next meeting, we'll probably be taking a look at those final reports and moving them on to the commission. And we need to give this office, what they have next on their list. We have this list of, departments that we've kind of been discussing, from this quality issues that have come up from the community over the past year or so. And a few months ago, we did a kind of spur of the moment vote to audit the Animal Services Division because of concerns that came out through the community. I'd like to ask Stephanie if anything outside of this list popped up as a red flag overall. Was there any particular department or division that seemed to have consistently worst areas that added to this list?
I'm having trouble hearing. There's a lot of paper shuffling.
Allison, stop rattling.
Yeah. Can y'all mute when you're not talking?
I am taking a look at my list of departments, and just if you will please give me one moment.
Madam Chair, do we audit the courts?
I don't believe we do. Yes, we have in the past. There's several audits. Mm-hmm. They usually request, they have in the past requested audits.
Okay.
Just a question.
It's been a long while. It's been a long while.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question.
I would say I would say the manager's office or SPOT.
Those were two divisions that scored consistently high in those areas.
They would be top of my list, like the manager's office or SPOS.
Is there any way we could kind of see a summary of that data? I mean, I know it's a ton of data, but is there a way to summarize for each of those divisions, or maybe just a list of the top 20 or so that seem to pose consistently high risk in those areas, or because I think that would be helpful.
Madam Chair,
areas out of the 117.
Melissa.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking along the same lines as you, and it seems like from what we just got the presentation, 11, there's like 25 questions out of the 51 that relate to these 4 categories that have been highlighted, I guess, from comparing the other government, the other entities that shared their assessment. It seems to me for us to be able to value the tool and the time of everybody, the 114 areas that did the 51 questions, could we get a scoring of all those 114 units and the scores they made just on these questions that were used in today's presentation? You see what I'm saying? And then that would give us their scores on these 4 categories. And that would, of course, but we also had talked about the audit management software being a complete asset for analyzing all this data. So I agree that we need the data to make the work plan. And if we can help fast track, Stephanie, the purchasing of that software, that was supposed to be in May. I mean, that was in the June meeting. And then if you had your reports done, that would leave you able to do the training that you need to use the new software. So, Melissa, I don't see there being a void in work to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certainly need to do over the next month, especially with wrapping up those final audits and with new software coming on, and also, possibly new staff coming on. Stephanie might want to take a vacation too.
Right. And then she's got the oversight committee.
Yeah.
Also, that's not done either. So, and we haven't gotten a report about how much time that's spending. Maybe we can get that at the next meeting.
I mean, I definitely would like to see the actual, some kind of data summary that addresses these areas that we've talked about, that we've identified, through community concerns and past audit committee discussions, how they kind of roll out with the data, but also anything else that really sticks out. Divisions and departments that have consistently, have a whole lot of 4s and 5s in there.
Okay. So for the 114 areas, you want the total scores for each area.
Yeah.
Broken down by category?
I think there's 4 categories. I think that's helpful.
Okay.
So if we could just have a list of the 114 areas and how they scored overall in each category. And I take it there are questions outside of these 4 categories as well, correct?
Yes, we have some questions from our research with finance and our research with HR and our research in other areas. Mm-hmm. So I'll add those to this spreadsheet too.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we could just have some kind of data summary that gives us some idea of what we're looking at across the board and how these areas that we've already identified quality in comparison to others, because there might be other divisions that we have not, that are not on this list that, really, really stand out in need of an audit. So does anyone want to say anything? I mean, I personally feel like there's some urgency to audit the elections office because, we have had a lot of public concern and, a public hearing, some very high profile elections and some issues, with the 2018 election. And so I feel like we need to get rolling on that, especially I don't know that it would have any impact on the election that's happening in less than 3 months. But
my position is like the opposite. I know that it was a very heated conversations throughout the community, but it's what you said. The election is in 3 months.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in general. There's certainly some lack of communication between the board and the staff, and
but we got an election coming up in 3 months.
Yeah,
and whatever is going on, we need to get through November. We just need to get there does not need to be any distractions right now other than what is already going on. That's the last one at this point that I would recommend, because the election is too important. Nobody should be distracted in these next 3 months.
So, I also wanted to add the police department to the list, primarily because, well, there's been a lot of community concern. But we've allocated $350,000 in our FY21 budget towards a committee that's going to take a long, hard look at our police department and the services they render, and the funding and the services in the community. And it occurred to me that committee might not have any idea how this department is structured. So I think it would be really helpful to have kind of a summary audit of the department that mostly focuses on structure and funding and revenue sources. Basically, just the facts kind of audit, just the numbers kind of audit. Not any focus on policies, but basically the kind of information that this committee will need to know to even begin its work. So that's why it occurred to me, and it would also send a clear message to the community that we are serious about the work that committee has been slated to do. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. But and before we can really have an in-depth discussion of any of it, we do need that summary data, and to understand how things score and how they measure up to one another.
I agree with that. I do.
Okay.
So at our next meeting, let's be prepared to look at numbers. And Stephanie, if you could get us those numbers, well in advance of that meeting, so we can have some time to sit with them.
Okay.
Rather than just looking at them at the meeting, and I know I need time to sit with numbers by myself. I want to go back on the agenda because there's one thing we did not do. We did not go ahead and accept I don't think we ever sent the medical services audit onto the whole commission.
So I submitted 2 agenda reports, one for the inmate healthcare contract audit, as well as for the audit for the purchase of audit management software for the September 1st voting meeting.
Okay. Well, does somebody want to make a motion that we formally send the inmate medical services report onto the full commission?
I so move.
Any second out there?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Patrick joined us. Patrick.
Patrick's
I've been here.
While we're talking about the inmate stuff, why are we going to look at that contract with the
Secorus.
what was it again?
Secorus, the phone company.
It was whoever we're contracting with our services.
Wait, Alita, I can't hear you. You're breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
No, keep on rolling. We're on the roll. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
I was just trying to do point of order since that wasn't on the agenda, but the medical services audit. What you're saying, Commissioner Chair Link, you're saying that you meant to have that on the agenda to make us to move it forward.
Yeah, well, it occurred to me that we never voted on it. When we left it alone the last time, we were asking for a little bit more data to be added onto it, but we never actually had the formal vote to send it to the whole commission.
Well, and on that note, because my notes from the June meeting, it was a lot of questions, and I guess thought we were going to have a follow-up on the answers to the questions that Auditor Maddox was having a hard time getting. And so are we assuming that the answers happened and they're in
some data? The data sheet that the other intern presented us, and he sent that information to us, and we had requested that be tacked on as an appendix to the report, but we never actually voted to send the report on.
Right. So it seems like we need to see that report to send it on. Or has everybody else seen it but me, maybe?
We've all seen it. We've all seen the report. It was just that extra data we wanted tacked onto it.
That's the part I'm asking about.
I've seen it. The intern sent it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so if you guys have seen it that are voting, I haven't seen it. So I'm voting no because I missed that one. So
yeah, did you not? I mean, we discussed the whole report and everything 2 months ago.
That's fine. Okay, keep on.
Yeah, so I'm just explaining why I need to vote no because I didn't see all that.
We got you. We got it.
Okay. So did you? But you did see the report itself because we did discuss the whole entire report in a previous meeting. You're just talking about that final data sheet that was presented to us, but you said you didn't actually receive it, the data sheet itself. It was presented during the meeting, and then it was emailed to us, but you say you didn't get the email.
Yeah, that's good. And then it's just for the record, and Avita says I've made myself clear, so I'm going to.
Okay.
And so I vote no on moving it forward because of that. But
somebody want to go ahead and make a motion to move that forward so we can just get that out of our hair?
I think we just did, and I was a no vote.
I thought we did.
No,
we just did.
Nobody moved to do that, did they?
Yeah, Patrick seconded.
All right, well then all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Allison is a no. Okay.
That's right. There we go.
Okay. Let's move on. I've got to go back to this. Okay. Do you so Stephanie, you said you're submitting the agenda report for the software.
The audit management software.
Okay, good. Okay, do you want to go ahead and give us a report from the Overview Commission?
Sure. So recently, last week, the Overview Commission had a meeting and the chair shared with the committee that was present that 4 members within the last week had resigned. And so where they started in January with 21 members, they are now down to 11 members. So there are several challenges that they're faced with. Because of COVID, they've had to reduce their scope significantly and not evaluate the entire government. And so they decided to instead look at several areas that the full commission were interested in, and there were 5 to 7 small work groups, and they were ruminating on which of the 5 out of the 7 they were going to vote on. As of last week, they had only voted on 2, and they had a deadline of the end of September to present and complete the full section of each work group report, but it's moving really slow. And after the 4 commission members resigned, there was just a deflation amongst the members at last week's meeting, and then someone made a motion to just disband, just go ahead. They only completed 2 out of the 5 work group reports. And so they made a motion to disband, and it was a majority vote. And so they are only going to present in a formal report to the commission 2 sections out of the 5. And I believe one of them is charter review, and I'm not sure what the second one is. They are quite disappointed, but they just don't feel like they can present and prepare an adequate report for the commission to evaluate with just 11 members. There are 2 different work groups that have prepared and conducted significant work, interviews, and collected a tremendous amount of data. And one of the work groups is the audit work group. And that work group audited this office and myself. And they are very thorough. They sent out questionnaires, and they contacted internal auditors from around the community. And they have already started working on a report that they anticipate completing by the end of next week. The only challenge that they are facing with is their work group was not approved. And so they are in a pickle. They feel like their information that they're collecting is so compelling, they really want to present the data to the audit committee. And so the chair of the audit work group is going to have a conversation with the chair and the mayor about just getting permission to see if that is okay, even though it's an unofficial work group. It's not going to be part of the full report, but it's worthwhile information. And this chair has asked to do one of 2 things: present the data to the audit committee at one of the meetings, or just send the report to the committee, to the chair, and to disseminate to the rest of the commissioners to review and decide if you would like to make any updates or changes. And they feel very strongly that the information contained in the report is worthwhile to consider, and they've put a lot of work into it. And I am interested to see the report myself, but that is the updates that I have about the Overview Commission. I can't hear you. You on mute?
Melissa?
You on mute, Melissa?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm really interested to see this report, and I'm really interested to talk to the chair of that work committee to find out why the rest of the commission, the Overview Commission, voted not to include that information in a report, which they're only going to include 2 areas. I mean, if there's all this other information that's complete to include a 3rd area, why would they not include that to present to the whole commission? I'm just a little flabbergasted by that, and I am looking forward to having this report presented to us. I'll reach out to that committee chair, and he can make it to our next meeting.
Okay. So you would like him to present at the September meeting?
I would. Does anybody have any discussion about that?
I think that would be in order. It sounded like first Stephanie said he was going to meet with you, the mayor, but I think that we should have the authority to invite whoever we want to speak to us. So if Madam Chair would make that invitation, now you got me so curious. I want to see the report.
I mean, and I would prefer this information be presented to all of us at once. I don't want any of the secret side meetings going on. I think it needs to be transparent and in a public meeting.
So are you looking for a motion or are you just going by consensus?
I mean, I can just ask Stephanie to add them to the agenda, I presume. I mean, it is part of the overview commission, and that's one of the tasks that.
He's going to have a conversation with the chair. Just, we both think that she'll be fine, completely fine with it. The chair, I am certain, will follow up with the mayor just to run it by him and keep him in the loop. But he asked if you wouldn't mind just making a courtesy call to the mayor to communicate to him that you do want him there at the September meeting to present. He doesn't want to step on any toes.
Well, I will. I'll reach out to him that I'm extending that invitation.
I will. I'll add him to the September agenda and let him know. And I will send his phone number to you.
He did. I got one of those questionnaires. Everybody on this committee should have gotten that questionnaire from that committee. I filled it out. So, I have had that contact with him.
And Melissa, are you going to invite Kelly?
If he wants to come, he's welcome to. Yeah, I'll let him know if he wants to be at that presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that it? I'm gonna look at the next meeting date. What was it? Early September. We could do September 2nd or the 9th. Anybody have any preference?
The 9th.
Okay. And do we want to move back to 5:30?
Yes.
Yeah, I do prefer 5:30 too. Okay. All right. So our next meeting will be on September the 9th at 5:30. And we did vote to go ahead and move that inmate medical services audit onto the full commission. So we should be getting a vote on that. And then we will be on the lookout for some summarized data from the risk assessment so we can be fully prepared to come up with a work plan at that September meeting.
And am I correct too that between now and that September meeting, the fleet management will be coming to us as well as the animal services. So we've got 2 audits coming this month.
Yeah, we should have
risk data.
Yeah, Stephanie, do you foresee those two reports getting to us by that September meeting so we could discuss those? No.
So I do believe the animal services audit will be returned in time. It just depends on when the exit conference is scheduled with fleet management. I haven't heard back yet. I gave them 3 days, so I haven't heard back. It may be 1 or 2 days delay, but definitely I think the animal services audit, which you should receive that in time.
Okay.
And this is the draft one, not the one with after the 30 days.
Yes, ma'am. It's the draft report.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else to add, or should we get a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Are there any other areas of that other commissioners are interested in that I can add to this list as far as topics to consider? I don't mind doing some research to add to this report.
I think that the 114 audited areas that filled out the 51 questions is enough for me.
Just wait for that. I will.
Okay.
I agree.
All righty.
So I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye,
y'all.
Who seconded?
Russell.
Russell Edwards.
Thank you.